Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen. In this episode, I'm chatting with author Pat McKee for his new book, Ariel's Island, in which he looks at how one incorporates morality into artificial intelligence. I gotta say, it's a great new take, and I'm very excited to check this book out. We look at how he built the foundation for this book and learn about the science behind the story, as well as how a lifelong career in law prepared him to write his book. Welcome back, everyone, to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. My name is Max. I am the host of the show, and joining me right now, well, this book is eerily timely given what is going on in the world. I am joined by author Pat McKee for his new book, Ariel's Island, a techno-thriller, which is my favorite genre, frankly. I'm a huge techno-thriller fan. Pat, welcome to the show, man. I am so happy to talk to you and dive into the end of the world.
Oh, yeah, man, Max, I am really happy to be here. This is a great show, and I've been looking forward to this all week.
All right, man. Well, let us dive right into the book. This is your newest title, and hopefully it will not be the only one. I'm kind of itching for a series, perhaps, but this thing deals with the concept of artificial intelligence. Now, it's certainly not a new thing to be tackled in like science fiction in thrillers. So when you were writing this, how did you try and make yours stand out?
You know, I have worked very hard not to make Ariel's Island into just another sci-fi thriller. Mm-hmm. And I've tried by imitating some of the greatest to make it more timeless. Mm-hmm. And in that regard, the plot is borrowed from Shakespeare. And one of the principal characters, the title character, Ariel, is the spirit in The Tempest, which is Shakespeare's last play. At least many scholars think it's his last play. And so the whole plot of this book centers around this idea. And it's the question, what happens when an all-powerful spirit is released into the world? And that's what happened at the end of The Tempest, mm-hmm. Shakespeare's last play. A lot of people believe that Shakespeare himself, he wrote himself into The Tempest as the magician Prospero. And at the end of the play, Prospero releases Ariel, and it's symbolic, an image of him releasing his creativity back in the world. But the question that I try to answer is, what happens next?
Why base your books on Shakespeare? I mean, are you just like a lifelong Shakespeare fan?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. I mean, I'm a book nerd. Okay,
of course.
Right? Yeah. You know, I was an English major. I'm actually double major in English and philosophy. So both of my loves have influenced this book. But I'll say this about Shakespeare. Shakespeare unabashedly stole his plots from other writers. He did it all the time. And I figured, well, if I'm going to steal a plot from somebody, who better than to steal it from Shakespeare?
Your story is basically Shakespeare through a modern lens, correct?
Oh, of course, yes. And you know, there are a lot of people, excellent writers, far more talented than I, who have adapted Shakespeare and have used Shakespeare as a stepping off point. Hogarth Press in England has a whole series by really fine authors who have been hired to adapt Shakespeare into modern garb. But that's not exactly what I'm doing here. I am using Shakespeare as a stepping off point for, you know, what is the next thing that happens? And here's one of the things that has motivated me or intrigued me in the last several years. And a perfect example is a New York Times editorial about 6 months or so ago by a very eminent person in the computer field. He was the head, or is the head, of the computer science program at Cal Berkeley. And he wrote an editorial and trying to help us think about the challenge of artificial intelligence. And here's what he posited this question, and that is okay, let's put artificial intelligence in charge of solving one of the greatest problems that mankind is facing, and that's global warming. Let's put artificial intelligence in charge of that problem, and let's empower one of these supercomputers to solve that problem for us. And the computer whirs and the computer thinks, and boom, he comes up with a solution. And the solution is do away with mankind.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Right.
But that's us. That's me.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So the question then becomes, how do you build in morality to artificial intelligence? And that's the thematic problem of my book.
Okay. So I know that one of the best parts about being a writer is you can spend hours upon hours just researching 6 million different subjects. What was your research for this book? Who'd you look to in terms of experts?
One of the problems with a techno-thriller or sci-fi or anything like that, where you're dealing with rapidly evolving technology, is not to sound like, a teenager talking about my face, right? Nobody talks about my face anymore. It's gone, dead and gone. So you don't want somebody picking your book up off the shelf and reading something that sounds like a teenager talking now about my face. What you want to do is to describe technology broadly enough so that it doesn't date you quite so badly as talking about my face, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the research that I did in the book was not so much about technology, though of course I did research about artificial intelligence and things like that, but it was the humanities side of it. That is, how, if we were able to do it, how would we teach artificial intelligence morality?
And how?
How?
Yes.
That's right. That's the central question. Not only how, but what? Because we have, as human beings, since Socrates, over 2,000 years, have been debating with one another, what is morality? What's the proper morality? Whose morality is going to govern an artificial intelligence program? Is it going to be a pragmatist? Is it going to be an idealist? Is it going to be some other school of philosophy that we've talked about a million times ad nauseum?
Ooh, that's a good question. What do you think we should do? Do you think we should be a pragmatist, an idealist? What kind of morality should we have?
Well, I will say this. So I was a philosophy major. I had to go to law school because, who's going to hire a philosopher, right?
No one.
Yeah. So the only thing left for somebody with a philosophy degree is to go to law school, which I did, and I'm very happy that I did it. But in my study of philosophy, and I'm no professional philosopher, don't claim to be, but as an undergraduate studying philosophy, and I studied it fairly intensely. My preferred philosophical school was pragmatism, and pragmatism is, of course, you're from Boston. I mean, it's the center of pragmatic philosophy is Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver Wendell Holmes.
That's right. Right.
Charles Sanders Peirce. These are great pragmatist philosophers. Nobody thinks about Oliver Wendell Holmes as a philosopher, but he was a mighty, mighty powerful intellectual force.
I definitely agree with you there, because I think if we were going to give AI any kind of morality, it had to be a pragmatic one. It has to be a practical one to make the right decisions, because you can't make it with them with emotion. But it's that kind of logic that led to, of course, Terminator, like I said, humanity being the basic problem. Okay, well, just kill them all, basically. Problem solved.
Right.
Oh, damn.
And another problem of pragmatism is that the way pragmatic philosophy operates in trying to get to the truth, that's what we all try to get to, is it's the scientific method is the perfect analog of pragmatic philosophy. You layer experience over time, you test your theories, you have a thesis, you have an antithesis, and then you have a synthesis. And what as I state in the novel, one of the problems that an AI program would have in being a pragmatist would be they got to follow and use as examples humanity, and humanity has been dreadfully bad at being moral.
No, really?
Yeah.
What proof do you have of that?
Yeah. So what do we do? That's the question.
Exactly.
What do we do?
And this is, of course, leads into your book, in which the main character, Paul McDaniel, he is framed for a crime and enlists an AI to help him solve it, Ariel, and everything works fine. Paul is freed, and that's the end of it.
No.
Nope. Ariel basically spirals out of control and goes from, able assistant to a cold-blooded murderer. How? How does Ariel spiral? I gotta know, man. How does this happen?
Well, that really was the fun part of writing this book. Yeah. It really was. I think if you obviously have read it, that there's a lot of fun in writing this book and thinking about, okay, you got this artificial intelligence program, and of course, to add to the plot, we have to have a little romantic angle to it. She turns out Ariel is presents herself as a very attractive female, right? Why is it, by the way, that all artificial intelligence programs seem to be female?
That's a good one. I have no idea, actually. You're right, though. They either are female or sound female.
Sound female. They got female names. Now, here's an interesting aside for all of you Shakespeare nerds out there. So Ariel is, for all of us now, we identify Ariel with the Little Mermaid, right?
Sure.
Little Mermaid, Ariel. When Shakespeare wrote The Tempest, the name Ariel was a masculine name, as in Ariel Sharon, a prime minister of Israel and a general military background, from what I understand, not a feminine character. So Ariel at the time was a masculine name, but it has only morphed since Disney into a female type character. But so I really played with this idea of how would a artificial intelligence program, if freed from control, that's the key, freed from control, what would it do? What would it do? And it would revert, I believe, certainly to the coding that it was created with. But what then, and I believe this is where the central conundrum of artificial intelligence comes, what then, though, happens when you have artificial intelligence programs smart enough to learn and to change their own code?
Ooh, I like this. I like this.
That's how Ariel spiraled out of control.
Ooh.
She learned to change her own code.
Mm-hmm. And Paul, I'm gonna guess, is just unable to control her. He just enlists her to help as things kind of get out of control. He's just he's got no way of actually stopping this.
Right. He's got no control over Ariel. The person who had control over Ariel, the creator, Placido, he freed her from control. It was his experiment. Kind of like, and there's so many parallels here to Frankenstein. He freed her of his control and let her go and experience the world and become a free moral being like just you and me. And what then happened? Just like Frankenstein, unintended consequences happen.
And that's where we're going to stop, B, because we want to give no spoilers away. We are a no spoilers kind of show. You got to read the book. Now, when you were writing this book, did you plan everything out? Did you like outline your stories, or you just kind of go by the seat of your pants?
There are writers who say that they plan the whole thing. They outline it. They know where they're going before they put pen to paper. That is just not me. Nice. I create characters and I say, okay, what are these characters going to do in this situation? And I did not know how this book ended until I wrote the last sentence.
Were you surprised by the turn of events?
I was surprised, and I believe my readers are surprised by the turn of events.
I like that.
Yeah.
So as mentioned before, this is a techno-thriller, but I want to get your take on this. The difference between a techno-thriller and a science fiction story.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think is the difference. Of course, we all have differences of opinions, but a techno-thriller, I believe, is set in the near present, maybe just a little bit future from now, but everything that happens in the techno-thriller is something that could happen.
How did you build then, given, like you said, that these are usually take place in kind of the near future? How did you build on the existing AI technology for your book?
I'll tell you the honest truth here. I guess we're going to be honest. I made it up.
Awesome.
I made it up.
That works.
Yeah, it is truly fiction.
Yeah.
I did not go out and start researching how IBM supercomputers operate. I really, to be honest with you, I don't have that much interest in how they operate. What I'm more interested in is what they do. How they do it, I'll leave that for the guys that graduate from MIT and Georgia Tech over here and whatever. How they do it, I'm more of a humanities guy. I'm interested in the philosophy, what they do.
Okay.
Just as I think it's important to study how humans interact.
Okay. All right. Now, I know that writing is not your full-time job. You also run a law firm. How do you find the time to write? How do you kind of like balance things out so you can do the writing and do it consistently?
I tell you, having done it, my hat's off to other professionals. Medical doctors do it. Lawyers do it. Engineers and scientists do it. Journalists like you do it. Anybody who has a day job, a demanding day job, and then is able to write, that is a tough way to go. I tell you. But the beauty of having your own law firm, and I have my own law firm, okay? I've gotten to that point in my practice. I've been practicing over 40 years. I've, got my own law firm. I'm talking to you from my home in a little town called Noonan, Georgia. And 2 blocks from here is my office building where 2 blocks.
Nice. So you just like walk to work?
Yeah. And so my regimen is I love the morning to write. I feel my most creative. A lot of times I really love to just get up and still be almost in a slightly, dream state and write, just still connected with my subconscious. And I love the mornings, and sometimes I'll I might burn up, a few hours that I otherwise should be spending on my clients' work.
Right.
But I enjoy it so much. It's such a great therapy. We were talking before you started recording about the craziness in the world right now, and working on a sequel to Ariel's Island has been very therapeutic to me.
Oh, okay. So sequels, I love these things. Does this continue the story from the first book, or is it more of a different story but in the same vein?
This one is going to continue the story because, again, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but the ending begs for a resolution, a further resolution. And so I am starting the new book, resolving the problem that is presented at the end of Ariel's Island and taking it further.
All right. I like it. Now, how did you get into writing in the first place? Because as mentioned earlier, you are a lawyer. You went to law school. What made you want to say, okay, I'm going to write a book now?
It's really a tangential thing that I got into writing in this fashion. Mm-hmm. A lot of my friends and family told me that I had an interesting personal story to tell, right? So the long and the short of that is my parents died when I was young. I grew up in an orphanage, and I put myself through college, law school, and became a successful lawyer. And many of my friends and family said, you got a good story there. Why don't you write a memoir? So I started out writing a memoir, and I gave it to an agent, and the agent said, this is too damn depressing. So why don't you write a legal thriller? You really can write well. Why don't you write a legal thriller? It'll be better received, and you can still get your story across. And so that's what I did. And the principal character, Paul McDaniel, does bear some resemblance to my own autobiographical story. Not always, not totally. It's not totally autobiographical, but there is some similarity. So that gave me the outlet to, kind of tell my story.
And from there, it was on to Murderous AI.
Yes, from the orphanage to Murderous AI.
That's a heck of a segue.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know that you can pull it off too easy.
Hey, well done, though, sir. Well done. Well, having finished this book, any kind of lessons that you kind of learned when it comes to just writing or editing or completing a story?
Yeah, lots of them. And I think every work, and you're a journalist, you do this. Every work, teaches you something outside of just learning about AI and Shakespeare and all of that. And I guess I can say this I will say this with great humility, and that is that the authors that have written great books out there, it is such an incredible labor of love to create something. It just takes your heart and your soul.
Mm-hmm. Definitely does. Given that, was it hard to send this thing out? Was it hard to say, okay, done, no more changes, no more revisions, we're just going to put it out there and see what happens?
That's the hardest part.
Right?
It really is. It's the hardest part. When do you know you're finished? I mean, you can always put in another little great scene or some more snippy dialogue or, whatever. It's just hard to say, okay, this is my baby. This baby is ready to go into the world. Mm. It's hard.
I don't think it's ever ready. I think you can always, like I said, you can always change it. I think when you know when it's ready, when someone else says, give it to me, you're done.
Yeah, right.
Because you need that person. You need the person to say, no more, just give me, we're done with it.
Right. Well, and I think that really was the case with my publisher, Southern Fried Karma. I got to tell everybody how wonderful they are. They're great people. Great publisher, gave me fulfilled my dream. And I sincerely appreciate them.
And how did you meet them?
I actually saw an article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is our standard newspaper down here, about this publisher that was concentrating on voices that hadn't been heard. The big publishers, they want the folks that you've heard 1,000 different times. That's who they're going to publish. And he wanted, God bless his soul, he wanted to publish people who hadn't been heard before, and gave me that shot. And I am forever grateful.
So now that the book is done, you also have to jump to the next thing, which is promotion and marketing, which is always fun.
Oh, man.
But right now, you can't do that. You can't go out to book conventions. You can't go out to festivals. You can't do signings. But are there other things later on in the year, down the road, that you think you might want to participate in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but you put your finger on it, Max. I mean, my book was published March 31st. We have an art center here in our little town, and all of my friends were going to put on a great book launch with hundreds of people invited. I anticipated selling hundreds of copies and all of that. And my publisher, of course, they anticipated selling hundreds of copies, and we just simply had to cancel it.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. You have to.
And so we've tried to do online things. We've tried to do interviews. Thank you very much for allowing me to do this. This is very much part of what I can do to market my book. We're doing any kind of technology that we can use to introduce people to my book. We're using right now. I will say it has been very challenging to do that. We had many face-to-face events scheduled in libraries, bookstores, convention centers, you name it. We had the stuff lined up and scheduled, and then the pandemic happened, and so to answer your question, though, specifically, when this is over, we're picking right back up. We're going to reschedule stuff. We're going to have a belated book launch. But in the meantime, again, my publisher is doing everything they can to help promote. And one of the things that they're doing this weekend, starting April 10, tomorrow, through April 15, they are giving free ebooks on Amazon. You go to Amazon and you can get a free ebook of Ariel's Island. Free, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah. So all I ask is that your listeners do that. Go on, download that ebook. But please, once you've done it, once you've read it, give me an honest review on Amazon.
Ooh, careful there, Pat. Careful. You never know.
Hey, all I want is an honest review.
But that is a tricky thing, though, because, you get that notification, you have a new review for your book. Is it all nerve-wracking?
It is nerve-wracking.
Yeah, right?
But now I've sent the baby out in the world, and I have confidence that the baby is going to do well.
Do you think you could take a bad review?
I don't know.
Do you think once you start getting reviews, it's going to be hard for you to actually read them, because you'll be like, okay, I really hope they like it. I hope they don't, just tear me apart.
I will say this about my legal training.
Yep.
Has helped me and steeled me for this experience, because as I explained to a lot of people, every time I walk into a courtroom, there's at least two other people in that room trying to make me look stupid. And, so you have to develop a thick skin to be a lawyer and be able to take criticism and stand up to it. So again, I ask your listeners, just read the book and give me an honest review.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm that confident.
All right. One thing I also saw that I want to ask you is actually donating the proceeds from this book to the orphanage in which you grew up in.
Not all of the proceeds. Where I grew up, the orphanage was falling on some hard times, and they had to close the school where I went to school there. And when they closed it, they lost all of the books in the library. But they've reopened it as a charter school. There's a lot of promise. I think Thornwell Charter School is going to do really well in Clinton, South Carolina. And I'm donating 10% of the profits to buy books for the school.
Oh, wow. Very cool, man. Very cool. We need more folks doing that.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, look, if it hadn't been for them, I know you and I wouldn't be talking right now.
Well, there we go. There we go. Well, Pat, this has been too much fun talking to you. I cannot wait to check out the book. And folks, if you want to learn more about this great author, you go to patmckeeauthor.com. I'll spell it for you. Pat, as it sounds, MCKEE author.com. Find him on social media. Follow him. Get the book. Again, 10th through the 16th. It is $3. Free. The best price you can ever find. Pat, thank you so much. Until next time.
It's been great. Thanks.
Hi, this is singer Kate Eppers, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
All right, folks, that brings this show to a close. Big thanks to Pat McKee for joining me, and you, the listeners, for checking this out each and every episode. Listen to the show on Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. Follow me on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, Twitter, Instagram, Citywide Max, and check out citywideblackout.blogspot.com. Keep those ears open.